O give thanks to the Holy One, all goodness, for their steadfast love endures forever. Let the redeemed who belong to the Holy One say so, those redeemed from trouble and gathered in from the lands, from the east and from the west, from the north and from the south.
We are gathered in love, we come from our righteous trouble, this place of joy and peace.
Some wandered in desert wastes, finding no way to an inhabited town, hungry and thirsty, their soul fainted within them.
Jesus, we found our way in the wilderness, and we follow the beacon of your life.
Amen. Now, abide these three we find in the book of Corinthians: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. We get it. Our willingness to always do the best for someone else, even when it costs us, is of primary importance. And to love, we require faith. When we love, we give hope. Hope seems a little hard to come by some mornings. Each day we have new opportunities to despair. We are tossed around like a canoe in a thunderstorm. In Lent, we embody the struggle to find hope, grateful that Easter isn't far off. In Lent, we acknowledge our call to be beacons of hope in a fog of evil. If you are a little tired of offering hope to others, welcome. If you need to hope, welcome. If you're up for the challenge of being that beacon of hope, welcome. We're talking about hope today.
You were dead through the trespasses and sins in which you once lived, following the course of this world, following the ruler of the power of the air, the spirit that is now at work amongst those who are disobedient. All of us once lived among them in the passions of our flesh, following the desires of flesh and senses, and we were by nature children of wrath, like everyone else. But God, who is rich in mercy, out of the great love with which we are loved, even when we were dead through our trespasses, made us alive together with Christ. By grace you have been saved, and raised us up, and seated us with the Holy One in the heavenly places in Christ Jesus, so that in the ages to come we might be shown the immeasurable riches of grace in kindness towards us in Christ Jesus. For by grace you have been saved through faith. And this is not your own doing. It is the gift of God, not the result of works, so that no one may boast. For we are what the Creator has made us, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which the Holy One prepared beforehand to be our way of life.
Search with all your heart.
prince of the power of the air. You were following the ruler of the power of the air, wrote the author of the letter to the church at Ephesus. Now there is an evocative statement. You were following the ruler of the power of the air. In Ephesians, it's a reference to a false god of no substance, except air has no substance. We breathe it and don't think about it. Air has substance. The power of the air may be how we were raised to believe we never measure up, and we believe that with every breath we take without thinking about it. The power of the air may be how we don't notice that we rely on our wealth to preserve our privilege. The power of the air may be the attitudes, the words that swirl around and confuse and threaten and push us into ourselves so we feel unable to act for ourselves or for anyone else. We may have breathed diminishment, assumptions about our wealth, learned helplessness, breathed them so deeply and for so long that our lives are not really ours. They belong to the ruler of the power of the air, who made us forget to covet our life and covet the lives of others. How do we escape? How do we escape that which we breathe with every inhalation and every exhalation? A young student minister and his wife in rural Tennessee were asked to come and preach at a small rural church. And there was $25 involved, so of course he said yes. And he went and he gave a pretty darn good sermon, and the best part was he got to bring his wife with him, and she played the pump organ, and they were singing, and he was preaching, and they got into it, and it all ended so well, and he knew there was food afterwards, and $5 bills out of the collection plate, handed straight to him. So they came down off the platform, he and his wife, and the chair of the Board of Deacons came up and said, "What? Thank you very much. Just so you know, we're not quite finished the service yet. We got a couple more things we need to do." And he turned around, and a couple of the other deacons of the church pulled out wooden boxes from under the first pew. And instantly he knew what he had not been told. This was a Pentecostal snake church. They opened the boxes and started to pull out poisonous snakes because they believed that they could pass them around, and according to the scriptures in Mark, they could get bitten and not die. He started to back toward the platform, took his wife's hand, and they stepped up, and the snakes were getting passed around, and they knew he expected to try it too. He was expected to try it too. And he turned to his wife and he said, "Is there a door behind us?" And she looked over her shoulder and she said, "No." And he said, "Where do you think they'd like one?" They went from a familiar and benign and even lovely circumstance to being trapped. And one way out of being trapped by the ruler of the power of the air is to make a door. Prayer is a door. Prayer is a door. The Holy One commanded, says the Psalm, and raised the stormy wind, which lifted the waves of the sea They mounted up to heaven, they went down to the depths. Their courage melted away in their calamity. They reeled, they staggered like drunkards and were at their wits' end. Then they cried to the Holy One in their trouble and were brought out from their distress. The storm was stilled, the waves of the sea were hushed. Then they were glad because they had quiet, brought them to their desired haven. Storm-tossed seas are problematic for the ancient Hebrews, a non-seafaring people. At best, they were lake fishermen who knew that the Sea of Galilee could be as deadly as our Lake Erie because it is so shallow, a wind comes across it and creates huge waves. Going out on the Mediterranean was unthinkable. It wasn't home. You wanted to be where you belonged, on dry land, in a familiar place. When you talk about people in need, when you talk about people who have lost their sense of belonging, choose your words carefully. Ephesians says, we became children of wrath. We lost our way until we rediscovered that we were made for good works. Jesus walked through a door into the wilderness and remembered his purpose. He was created for good works. He had to reset from thinking about his life as one of nutrition and acceptance and power. If he hadn't, he could have died spiritually. He could have lost his way, lost his calling. If he had not gone for that 40-day walk, if he hadn't learned to look at things and look at things differently, I can still see you flailing, wrote Buddy Wakefield, eating knuckle cake, full torque and tender, heart pounding from being pulled under. Yahweh, wrote the psalmist, rescued those overwhelmed by life, who could barely breathe. The Creator's grace, wrote the author of Ephesians, raised us up. Grace gave us the ability to see ourselves as we are, cherished, valuable. Grace gives us the ability to see others as they are, cherished, valuable. Now, we are what we are made for because of grace. There's a hint of resurrection, of new possibility in Psalm 107. Saved from the flood, saved from the sea, saved from the storms, we were pulled from drowning. And there's more than a hint in Ephesians in the claim that we were saved from delusion and self-delusion. The ruler of the power of the air has no power over us. In the psalm, resurrection is about homecoming. People from the east and from the west, from the north and from the south are gathered in. And in Ephesians, resurrection is about coming to yourself. By grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not your own doing, it is the gift of God. Not the result of works, so that no one may boast, for we are what the Creator has made us. Come back to Tennessee with me for a moment, to that young ministry team looking for an exit. Did you know that there is a secret door at the front of this church? I don't know if it has anything to do with snakes. I think it's because the choir can get away without anyone noticing when the sermon is bad. Or at least to get to their next gig. Do you know where it is? Yeah. Somebody open it for me. See? That is the coolest thing. Thank you. And you do not need to look under your pews for wooden boxes. The choir members who need to because of that door, can slip out during the service and get to their next gig. Our next gig is resurrection.
I can still see you flailing, eating knuckle cake, full torque and tender, heart pounding from being pulled under, feet bleeding from bracing for endings, tongue dying to cure us forever. Because promises murder us backwards when people like me don't keep them. And sure, we all deserve absolution, but especially you and Faith. You've got the same hunger punch, same song still rising off the water main, running through the laws of a moon dead set on the daylight, digging marbles from the trees, of a love not scared to make no sense, still monkey enough to see the same devastating reason for living this life. My giant saint everything. I promise you, forever